I'm John, and this is chapter 3 of Dreamer of the Day. Now, I'm hoping you'll like it, and may I recommend that you subscribe. Subscribing works the best. I understand with YouTube they tend to judge whether they're going to help a channel increase its popularity by the number of subscribers, and I could really do with a few more subscribers. So when we were leaving Mackay, we were heading straight towards the Whitsundays, which we were quite excited about. It's got a reputation. There's 100 islands, they stretch over 100 miles, and there's resorts, there's beautiful national parks. It's really got a reputation, and we were quite excited about visiting it. Now, when we left, we decided to go to Brampton, which isn't the first of Whitsundays, but it is the first one with a resort on it. We thought we'd try go and we understood that yachts were made friendly and made welcome, so we decided to go there. And it's only about 20 miles, so it took us 3 hours. When we got there, we went ashore, and we certainly were made welcome. We were allowed to use the bar at night. We could wander around the resort, and we stayed there one night, and it was quite interesting. And so the next morning, we decided we'd only go 18 miles. There was a lovely uninhabited island called Thomas Island, and it looked good, and we'd heard it had a nice bay on the northwestern side, so we went there and we stopped. When we came up, when we sailed up to it, we decided it was high tide. We thought we'd like to have cleaned the bottom, so I thought, well, this is a golden opportunity. We've got the whole area to ourselves. We went up on the beach, which you can do, of course, with multi-hulls, and we put an anchor out and a bow line out onto a tree, and just wait for the tide to go out, and we were able to clean the bottom. And it was a simple matter. It wasn't that dirty, but it was a good idea anyway. The next morning, I made this, which turned out to be a crazy decision, that I might circumnavigate the island on foot. And there's only a few beaches, most of it's rocky outcrop, and though it's only a small island, it really is about 6 miles. Well, it was a pretty crazy thing to do. It took me all day, and I regretted it. Many parts of my travels around that island, I thought it wasn't a good idea. But when I got back, of course, Hillary told me in no uncertain terms I was stupid. I'd done what would have happened if I hadn't come back. What would they have done? So she was right. It was a stupid thing to do, although quite an experience. The next day we set sail for Lindeman Island, which is another resort island, and again had a great reputation, and is run by the Nicholson family. And as it's not very far, it's only a short distance, and a lovely setting with a beautiful island, shore island across the bay. Now, as we headed towards it and got close, we could see their large wharf, and there were some markers leading in, and we sailed in between the markers, dropped the sail, and we could see another yacht in there that turned out to be a yacht called West Wind. And we were beckoned to pull up alongside them, and we stayed with them there for a couple of days before they finally left. But it was such a friendly place. The Nicholsons, they made us so welcome. The guests, we enjoyed them, and we stayed there for 6 days and had a lovely time. And we often walked up onto the hills, running down the middle of the island was an airstrip, and there were some beautiful views towards Shore Island, and it really is a lovely stay, very friendly place. Really enjoyed. One day I was taking a walk on my own up onto the top of the island, and I was walking alongside the airstrip, And also I noticed a flock of sulphur-crested cockatoos flying around, and one of them pulled away from the flock and he landed about 20-30 metres in front of me, and I thought it was quite unusual at the time, but he then turned towards me and in their way came up towards me, headed towards me, and I thought that rather strange. And then he got below me and he came down and he stood below me, and I'm looking around thinking, this is a bit of a joke, someone's having me on here. And then all of a sudden he sort of looked up at me and he turned his head on the side and he said, "Scratch Cocky! Scratch Cocky!" And I thought, this is candid camera, this is a bit of a joke. And I'm looking down at this little fella and he does it again, he leans on one leg, "Scratch Cocky! Scratch Cocky!" So I thought, well, you know, what can I do? So I sort of knelt down and I went down and I gave him a little, and he turned his head over and I gave him a little rub on the neck, and he went into ecstasy. He was really enjoying it. Well, we did this for a little while and then I pulled back and he looked up at me, and actually at that time I had my camera with me, so one-handed I gave him a bit of a scratch on the back and I photographed him, and then he walked away and flew away, and I presume he was a one-time pet who got his freedom, but had decided if there was something in life he liked doing and liked humans to be doing for him, was giving him a scratch. So I thought that was quite amusing. Anyway, I wandered on down the island, and the view when you look north is a beautiful island of Pentecost, and it really is a beautiful place. After 6 glorious days, we decided it was time to leave Lindeman and go north up to South Mole Island. And at that stage, we'd already arranged that the friends we'd made then we were going to visit South Mole the following day in that beautiful cruiser the island had, and I think it was called Sirocco, a beautifully kept cruiser, and they were going there the next day, and we arranged to meet them. You think we hadn't seen them for weeks, but anyway, we arranged to meet them the next day. So we set sail and we decided to go to Sid Island for the night, which it's quite a good anchorage and it's got a good reputation, so we stayed there, and the following day we did sail across to South Mole. The Sirocco was already there and our friends were there, and we chatted, and you think we hadn't seen them for weeks, but it was only the day before. And they all decided that we should come back to Lindeman with them. Come back to Lindeman, sail back, let's have a few more days. They thought, this is good fun. And I sort of pointed out to them that a little boat like SailVenture didn't sail very well to windward, so going back south wasn't a good idea. So they got all upset, and then they put it to the skipper, and he said, well, if Mrs. Nicholson agrees with it, I'm happy to tow him back. And I thought, my God, tow us back. And anyway, he got on the radio and he chatted to Mrs. Nicholson. Yeah, that's okay, bring them back. So there it is, we got towed all the way back to Lindeman Island to spend 2 more days at that glorious, friendly place. When we arrived at Lindeman, I went to see Mrs. Nicholson and told her that we were somewhat embarrassed about us intruding on them for a second time, and she said, oh John, don't worry about it. If my guests are happy having you here, then I'm happy. I went, well, that's great. Oh well, that's very good. One of my favourite guests, or my favourite guest at Lindeman, was Dee. Now, she was a really beautiful woman who really enjoyed just being cuddled. And I was the young fella who was happy to oblige. And she was lovely. After 2 more days, we left again and started to head back to South Mole. Now I look back on that and all the years since then. That was in 1968. I've been, and Jan and I, and we've been up and down the Whitsundays many times. But of all the years that I've been in that direction, been past Lindeman Island, I never ever visited again. And I presume that was because I didn't think it could ever be quite as good again. When we sailed back to South Mole, I was going through John Guzzel's book that I've been reading, Trekker Around the World, and I noticed that he had called in and spent some time at South Mole, and he mentioned the lovely climb. There's a path going up the side of the hill. It's not a mountain, but it's a pretty big outcrop, and it's a lovely walk, and he talked about that. So I decided that I would do this walk, and it climbs up to a place called Spine Cop. And I walked up there, and it really is nice when you look out as you go up. The scenery gets better, and the view of the Whitsundays increases. And when you get to the top, you look down and you can see the huge wharf there at South Mole, and yeah, I really enjoyed that, and I've done it many times since then, but that time, my first time, was particularly good. Now, we only stayed 2 more days at South Mole, and then we went back to Airlie Beach. Now look, we've been to Airlie Beach while we're there. I think it was in a total of the 6 weeks we were in the Whitsundays, we went to Airlie Beach 4 times. Now, Airlie Beach, it had a supermarket, it had a post office, it was quite a friendly place. And we used to go back there regularly along the beach there, quite well protected beach. There were hundreds of yachts sometimes. During the middle of the season there were yachts everywhere at that time. And so we visited there and got supplies before we left. But now if you go back to Airlie Beach today, it's a different world. It has grown up, it has become sophisticated, it's got hotels everywhere, and there are 2 beautiful big marinas which I've stayed on, one of them particularly, and it's really a different place altogether. Now while we were there this last time, we heard that they were, well, we knew they were building and opening a new resort on Daydream Island, and we decided that we should go there because we heard they were looking for workers before they quickly opened the resort. So we sailed over, and it turned out to be a real fun time. We all got jobs. The girls were making beds and cleaning, and us boys were moving furniture around, and they had an historical opening of it. There was a boat sailing around the area at the time called the New Endeavour, beautiful old square rigger, and they arranged with them that they would do an historical opening by Captain Cook and the crew dressed up as Captain Cook and his crew, and they rowed ashore and they did an historical opening. It was a great place, and we enjoyed our stay there before we left. And I think the next place we went to, and we've been there before, was Nara Inlet, which is on Hook Island, and it is a place that yachts love to go because it goes deep into the island. It's well protected. at the end of the passage, when you get there and anchor, and there isn't a trail going up, but we decided to climb it. We decided to climb up one face, and it was a hell of a walk. I don't think I ever did it again. I thought once was enough, although I went there a lot of times in the following years, but I never did that walk again. But when you get to the top, the view over towards Hayman Island and then looking due west is spectacular. Also there is on the rocks, all the cruising yachts of the last 20-30 years have put their names, have painted their names on the rock, and we did the same. And in the photograph you see here of on the boat there is our friend Dan. I've known Dan now for a long time. He became a lifelong friend, and he and his wife, and today we still talk and contact and visit whenever we can. But as the years went by and we went back later, those names faded, our name, SailVenture, faded, and a lot of the old ones faded because they were just painted on roughly. And I think it's illegal to do it today. You can't. The rangers don't like you painting on the rocks. But on that day we painted ours, and it was there the next time we went back, but in later years it had gone. When we left Nar Inlet, we sailed around out of Nar Inlet and around to Hayman Island, and on the northwestern side is a beautiful little anchorage called Butterfly Bay. In fact, we never went to the resort during that period. It wasn't considered a friendly place for cruising yachts, but we did like Butterfly Bay on the northern side, and we spent the night there, and the next morning we did a long trip. We did one of our overnight sails, which we're beginning to enjoy, all the way to Townsville. So our next stop was Townsville.